The rain had started before sunrise, and by the time Maria stepped off the crowded bus, her shoes were already soaked through. She held her son's tiny hand tightly as thunder rolled across the gray sky above the city. Her cleaning uniform clung to her tired shoulders, and her eyes carried the kind of exhaustion that no amount of sleep could erase. But that morning, the fear inside her chest felt heavier than the rain. Maria had never taken her son to work before. 7-year-old Daniel walked beside her quietly, clutching a small backpack that looked too old for his age. His school had closed unexpectedly because of a plumbing emergency, and Maria had no family nearby, no babysitter she could afford, and no one willing to help. Missing work was not an option. One missed shift meant a smaller paycheck, and a smaller paycheck meant late rent and empty cupboards. She looked down at Daniel and forced a smile, though worry twisted inside her. Ahead of them stood one of the largest mansions in the city, a place so beautiful it almost looked unreal against the stormy sky. The estate belonged to billionaire businessman Edward Langston, a man whose name appeared in magazines and newspapers, a millionaire known for luxury hotels and enormous charities, though people rarely saw him in public. Maria cleaned the mansion 3 days a week. No employee was allowed to bring children, and if she lost this job, she didn't know how they would survive. Before the story continues, if you believe kindness and second chances still matter in this world, take a moment to like this video. Comment where you're watching from. Share this story with someone who believes in compassion, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that touch the heart. Maria hesitated at the iron gates while rain dripped from her hair. She almost turned around, almost gave up and accepted whatever punishment waited for her. But Daniel looked up at her with complete trust, and that look broke her heart. 3 years earlier, life had been different. Her husband had died in a construction accident that left her alone with hospital bills, debt, and a child too young to understand why his father never came home again. Since then, Maria had worked endlessly, offices at night, apartments on weekends, and the Langston mansion whenever shifts were available. She lived in a tiny apartment where the heater failed during winter and the walls carried stains older than Daniel himself. Yet despite everything, she fought every day to protect one precious thing, her son's hope. Daniel loved books more than toys. He dreamed of becoming an engineer and spent evenings drawing bridges and machines in old notebooks Maria collected from discarded office supplies. But dreams were expensive. Sometimes, Maria feared poverty did not simply empty pockets. It slowly convinced people to stop dreaming altogether. The mansion doors opened after security confirmed her identity. The house manager, Mrs. Holloway, greeted her with the same strict expression she always wore. Her eyes immediately landed on Daniel. The woman's face hardened. Maria's throat tightened. She explained quickly, apologizing before accusations even came, promising Daniel would remain quiet and invisible, promising it would never happen again. Mrs. Holloway looked annoyed and impatient, reminding her that rules existed for reasons. Maria felt humiliation burning her cheeks. After several painful seconds, Mrs. Holloway finally allowed them inside, though not kindly. Maria thanked her repeatedly. The mansion glowed with warmth and wealth. Marble floors reflected crystal chandeliers. Expensive paintings lined the walls, and fresh flowers perfumed the air. Daniel looked around silently, his eyes wide with wonder. Maria gently instructed him to stay in the library while she worked. The library alone was larger than their apartment. Rows of books stretched toward the ceiling, and Daniel sat carefully in a corner with his backpack, trying to take up as little space as possible. Maria cleaned desperately that morning. Every sweep of the mop carried anxiety. Every sound made her nervous. She feared someone important might notice Daniel. Hours passed. Rain battered the windows while she moved through hallways and guest rooms, dusting shelves and polishing surfaces until her hands ached. Yet fear never left her. Then something unexpected happened. While cleaning the upstairs hallway, Maria heard raised voices downstairs. Her stomach dropped. She hurried toward the sound and froze near the library entrance. "Miss, I am." Holloway stood inside, looking furious. Daniel stood near a bookshelf, pale and frightened. An expensive antique globe had fallen onto the carpet, Though it had not broken, its wooden stand had cracked. Maria's blood turned cold. Mrs. Holloway accused the boy of touching things he should never touch. Daniel shook with fear and tried explaining, but emotion trapped his words. Maria rushed forward, apologizing again and again. The cost of repairing such an object could equal months of rent. Mrs. Holloway announced that she would report the incident immediately. Maria felt the room spin. She imagined losing her job, eviction notices, unpaid bills. Daniel blaming himself, then another voice entered the room. Calm, deep, unexpected. Everyone turned. Standing near the doorway was Edward Langston himself. The millionaire rarely appeared during staff hours. Yet there he was, dressed simply, carrying no sign of the wealth surrounding him except the quiet authority in his posture. The room fell silent. Maria lowered her eyes. Mrs. Holloway quickly explained the situation, emphasizing broken rules and damaged property. Edward listened without interruption. Then his gaze moved toward Daniel. The boy stood trembling beside the fallen globe. Instead of anger, something unreadable crossed the millionaire's face. He walked toward the globe slowly and examined the damaged stand. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Edward did something that shocked everyone. He asked Daniel whether he liked books. Mrs. Holloway looked stunned. Maria stared in confusion. Daniel hesitated before quietly nodding. Edward noticed a notebook peeking from Daniel's backpack and asked permission to see it. Maria expected trouble, but Daniel, though nervous, handed it over. The millionaire opened the notebook. Inside were sketches, bridges, engines, towers, and carefully drawn mechanical ideas created with pencil and imagination. Edward turned page after page. The library became completely silent. Something changed in his expression. Not pity, recognition. He asked Daniel, who taught him to draw like that. The boy admitted he learned alone. Maria watched uncertainty spread through the room. Edward closed the notebook gently. Then he revealed something nobody expected. As a child, he said, he had once accompanied his own mother to work. His mother had been a hotel cleaner. She cleaned rooms while he waited quietly in storage closets with borrowed books. No one in the room had ever heard this story before. The millionaire looked toward the rain outside the windows. He spoke about hunger, embarrassment, and watching his mother pretend not to be tired. He described seeing wealthy guests walk past without noticing the workers who changed sheets and scrubbed floors behind closed doors. Maria felt tears building. Mrs. Holloway looked uncomfortable. Edward placed Daniel's notebook on the table. Then, he said the globe had not fallen because of carelessness. Security footage showed Daniel attempting to catch it after noticing the unstable stand. The room froze. Mrs. Holloway's face drained of color. Daniel had not damaged the globe intentionally. He had tried to save it. Maria covered her mouth, overwhelmed with relief. But Edward was not finished. He looked at Daniel again and asked what he wanted most in life. The boy answered softly. He wanted to build things that helped people. The millionaire remained quiet for several seconds. And then he made a decision that would leave everyone speechless. He instructed staff to arrange lunch for Maria and Daniel. He postponed meetings, and he personally toured the mansion library with the boy. Word spread rapidly among employees. No one could understand it. The billionaire who rarely spoke during work hours was spending time with a cleaning lady's son. Maria watched from a distance, confused and emotional. Edward showed Daniel rare engineering books and historical designs. He asked questions not to impress himself, but to understand the child's mind. Daniel slowly relaxed and spoke about machines that saved energy and bridges that survived earthquakes. The millionaire listened carefully. Hours later, Edward invited Maria into his office. Fear returned immediately. She expected warnings, perhaps dismissal. Instead, Edward surprised her again. His office overlooked gardens soaked by rain. Awards and photographs filled the walls, but his expression carried none of the arrogance she imagined wealthy men possessed. He thanked her. Maria did not understand. He explained that years of wealth had surrounded him, with people who often admired money more than honesty. Yet Daniel's instinct to save the globe and Maria's willingness to risk embarrassment for her child reminded him of something he had nearly forgotten: human dignity. Then he shared another painful truth. His mother had died before seeing his success. He built companies and mansions, but one regret never left him. He never thanked her enough for the sacrifices she made. Maria's eyes filled. Edward looked toward Daniel, waiting outside with staff. And then came the moment that shocked everyone. He offered to sponsor Daniel's education completely. Not as charity, not as publicity, but as investment in talent. Maria could barely breathe. School fees, books, tutoring, Vox, tutoring, everything. She thought she had misunderstood. Her knees weakened. Tears rolled down her face before she could stop them. Edward continued speaking. He wanted Daniel enrolled in one of the city's best academic programs and offered Maria stable, full-time employment with higher wages and benefits. Maria cried openly. Years of fear suddenly cracked apart inside her. For so long she had survived day by day that hope itself felt unfamiliar. News of Edward's decision spread quickly through the household. Some staff whispered disbelief. Others quietly celebrated. Mrs. Holloway later approached Maria and apologized, admitting she had judged too quickly. Maria accepted gently. Because hardship had taught her something powerful, people carried wounds nobody could see. Months passed. Life slowly transformed. Daniel entered his new school frightened, but determined. He studied harder than anyone expected and continued filling notebooks with designs and inventions. Maria still worked, but no longer with crushing desperation. For the first time in years, she slept without calculating unpaid bills in the dark. Edward occasionally checked on Daniel's progress. Their bond grew quietly, not like fairy tales, not perfect, but real. The millionaire never tried replacing Daniel's father or becoming a hero. Instead, he became something equally valuable, a man who remembered where he came from and refused to let another child's potential disappear beneath poverty. And Daniel never forgot that rainy morning. Before we reach the ending, here's a special request comment below with the words, "Kindness changes lives. If you believe one act of compassion can rewrite someone's future." Years later, during a public engineering competition, Daniel unveiled an award-winning bridge design focused on affordable disaster-resistant construction for poor communities. Reporters praised his brilliance, but when microphones approached him, he spoke not about genius or fame. He spoke about his mother. He said dreams survive because someone protects them. Maria sat in the audience crying silently. Edward watched from the back of the hall. No cameras followed him. He did not seek applause, but his eyes carried quiet emotion. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, leave a heartfelt comment, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Your support helps more emotional stories reach people who may need reminding that compassion still exists. That rainy morning had begun with fear. A cleaning lady feared losing everything. A little boy feared being blamed. And a millionaire carried old regrets buried beneath wealth. Yet sometimes life changes not through miracles, but through mercy. Because the greatest fortunes are not measured in mansions or money. They are measured in the lives we choose to lift when nobody is watching. And long after the storm ended, Maria would remember standing outside that mansion in soaked shoes, believing the world had closed every door. She had no idea that one door opened by kindness would change their lives forever.